back, everybody, to Worldwide TV. Rod Egan here, and we're joined today by a special guest, Mr. Keith Martin of SCM. Keith is well-known, noted collector himself, as well as the publisher and the owner of Sports Car Market, one of the leading publications for sure in the market, Keith. Been around a long time, not to date you or I, but our history goes back a long time too. Appreciate you joining us.
It's a treat to be here. As I said to you earlier, I was at your very first auction in Auburn. We followed you for a long time, and we admire what you add to the auction scene. Now, this is your Scottsdale auction, but you're not in Scottsdale. Tell us about that.
Not in Scottsdale, sitting here in our corporate headquarters in Auburn, Indiana. So, and thankfully, we're able to do this. The genesis of moving the auction here really came from, of course, COVID, basically, has been the precursor. And we talked with, the agencies and health departments and Arizona and the governor's office before Thanksgiving. And obviously we had to show them that we had met or exceeded their COVID protocols and everything to hold our events, which we did. We passed all that with flying colors. But a little bit before Thanksgiving, it was brought to our attention that they've kind of been on the rise, like several states had been already for their COVID cases, and they had mentioned, look, we're expecting people are going to get together for Thanksgiving, whether we tell them to or not. They're just going to, being typically the most traveled holiday there is, Thanksgiving. They were right. And a lot did. And so they said, we expect in that 2-week period after Thanksgiving that, of course, there's going to be a spike. And then, of course, 2 weeks after that spike, we're going to have Christmas, which will result in another spike probably. And even a week after that, you're into New Year's. And they said, while you've got a green light to hold your event and do whatever you need to do, the reality is, I can't promise you that come 2 days before or a week before your sale, there isn't going to be word come down that says you can't have a gathering of more than 50 people. So being given that information, we sat, and John and I went back and forth for a while and discussed all the options and what was right. And at the end of the day, we just decided that we think it's important to have a live event when you can. So if we can't, we decided it's not okay to just be like, okay, well, we'll just call it an online event now. Because I don't think that's fair to the consigners. Because I think you literally do take away so much of their market if you just make it an online. When you consider now, when we do an online event, it's our live auctions have 3 online platforms. So you get the best of both worlds when you combine those. And we were able to pivot, thankfully, for one reason and one reason only. We have this facility in Auburn, Indiana. So we have 200,000 square feet that's heated and cooled. No cars have to be outside. Nobody has to go outside. So you're not going to come to Auburn, Indiana to play golf, but you can definitely come to Auburn, Indiana and have some great fellowship and buy some great cars.
Rod, tell me, where does Worldwide fit into the world of land auctions? Where do you think your niche is, and what's your secret sauce and your sweet spot?
Well, I think if you look at in the catalog auction companies, where we differentiate ourselves, I would say generally is the type of offering we have. So I think it's fair to say that the sports car market is obviously and has been the hottest segment for years in our industry. And some of the auction companies, I would say, focus on that greatly, I would say. And what we try to do is have a more diverse offering. So we still want incredible quality, but we want to have some pre-war cars. We've always been known for having great muscle cars. We have resto mods. As long as they're done to the caliber that suits the rest of the cars. We love a real diverse offering, and we get a great feedback from that. And all the business models of the other companies are great. It works for them. It's perfect. So I'm certainly not speaking ill of anything anyone else is doing, but we really want to have that identity of being, if you've got a great car, no matter what it is, we can find the right buyer for your car.
So Rod, we've got four very different cars that we're going to look at today. Two are kind of similar, the Allard and the Omega Jaguar. And then you've got one almost new car, the Ferrari, which represents the epitome of technology today. And then you have a Cobra, a special Cobra that's got an interesting story to it. Let's start with the Jaguar.
So the Omega, I love the Omega for a lot of reasons, and it's what you would refer to as a special, right? You've got all these guys back in the day that were racers that made and built their own stuff, and some great cars have come out of that idea of a special, you know, that's come, and you get guys like Carroll Shelby that started to put together some great stuff, and the Omega Jag is one of those cars. So John Wilkes was a racer, a European guy, raced all the time, and like every racer back in the day, was always looking for a competitive edge while staying within the rules. And so he would race and tweak, and same story as every racer, basically. But what he done with this car, I think, was phenomenal in that he's built a true racer's race car. And you've got a car now that has an incredible pedigree in Europe. One of the things I like about it is that it hasn't been shown or it hasn't been out and about here. So for the North American audience, it's going to be very new to them, but it's still substantiated by the great history, the build quality, and then all the great stuff that comes with it. It's got a stack of documentation as long as your arm. That's incredible and wonderful to read through. You read through the documentation. Sir Jackie Stewart drove the car. He writes about it in the letter that's with it. It's a phenomenal car, and for me, it's a very usable car. So today, as you know, Keith, people's tastes change. We're talking about people doing a lot more tours, a lot more driving events, rallies. This car, you can go just about everywhere. There aren't any tours and rallies and shows that this car wouldn't be accepted. You can, based on its vintage, you can certainly go on, if you're in the U.S., the Colorado Grand. The Pebble Beach Motoring Classic is starting to take a lot more cars of this ilk, of the period race stuff, authentic, real good stuff. And then after that, you get out of the racing side of this thing. I mean, it's a rocket. It weighs 1,700 pounds. It's a phenomenal car to drive.
What attracted my attention, Rod, this car was the fact that it has not really been seen in North America. Because you and I both know one of the challenges with a car that's been shown a lot, if your car wins best of show at Pebble, well, then what do you do with it? Right. And if you buy Jimmy's 8C 2900 that won best of show, you are always referred to as the guy that bought Jimmy's car.
You're 100% correct on that. And this gives you the ability, it'll be dubbed your car. You buy this car, you debut it, that car now has your identity for sure, which is great. I think that's fantastic for people to have that opportunity.
I'll ask you the same question about each of these cars. Sure. Describe the buyer of this car to me.
Somebody that's going to really enjoy driving their cars. So this is not what I would call a trailer queen by any means. You look at this car up close, it's got some little nicks and bumps and bruises, and for me, it's exactly what it should be. It's a true car, true race car. But you can take it, it's docile enough when you drive it like a road car that you can drive it like a road car. Like a lot of think about it. When guys built race cars, they used to drive them to the track, race, and then drive home again, right? So this is still out of that ilk where you can drive this car on a day-to-day basis if you want to. And if you want to get a little wild and get up to speed and take it out to a track and hang it out there a little bit, you can absolutely do that. And then the other thing that I think that appeals is if you're a Jag collector, you don't have one of these. You know, and we've received some interest from guys that have, you know, different custom body Jags and different segments in the Jags, and this draws interest basically because of that. It's so unique, and you just don't find cars like this. So I think the buyer of this is somebody that has a good spirit of adventure, that wants to drive and have a good car.
The car is being offered at no reserve, is that correct?
This is not no reserve, but I will say this, it's with the amount of interest we have in it, it might as well be.
Where do you peg this on the value scale? What's the range and what's a comparable to this car?
Comps are hard with a car like this. I mean, you have to start really digging back and peeling back some layers on some other stuff. I think this car is in that, not 200, but getting close there, more than 150, in that range, I would say, is where this will probably lie.
Move on to the other car that's very similar to this, at least in appearance, and that's the Allard. Tell us about the Allard.
Great car, Sidney Allard, as you know, right? Le Mans veteran. This is a great car in that the history of this car has been known basically from day one. So I always like that as a car guy myself. I love knowing the history, the entire history of the car. It's been through an extensive restoration. It's Cadillac powered, which, as you know, is very preferable. A lot of guys love the CAD powered Allards, and it's on the button. It's ready to go, and the restoration was done recently enough, Keith, that you could actually take this to Concours events and show it, and compete for condition. And then again, that's another car that if you want to, you can take this car out to the track again too. I mean, it ticks a lot of boxes. Cars like these, as you know, in today's, you know, hobby where we are, guys love to use their cars, and this is incredibly usable as well.
Brutal cars, in the sense that when you're on the road in this car, you know that you're driving something. That's the complete opposite of the Ferrari that you got for sale, which is unbelievable in performance, but you could be in your living room with the AC turned on going 200 miles an hour in this car.
There's no question that Ferrari has taken what was just almost racing cars that people drove on the street to now the amount of luxury and sophistication and technology in a new Ferrari would shock you. I would shock Enzo today, I would think.
Gearhead that buys a new Ferrari like this, or maybe a tech specialist who's just gone public and has a lot of money. Who's your buyer?
It's all of those, Keith. I think when you look at, certainly when you see the style and design of that, the late model, really good sports car phase is good. It's very good, right? So you've got a lot of custom stuff on this car in terms of, you know, the paint, the custom paint, all the options. I think there's close to $90,000 in extra options on this car. I think a lot of guys buy it, and you know, I'm seeing guys that have Packards and Lincolns, and that are, as their tastes shift, they can get in this and drive this around anywhere, take it anywhere they want, go anywhere, have a lot of fun. So again, I think it harkens back a little bit to the usability on this. But I'm starting to, I used to think that, okay, great, it's going to be the new Silicon Valley guy, you know, or that's buying all these cars. But frankly, Keith, I'm seeing just as many 70-year-old guys buy these cars as I am, you know, 30 and 40-year-old guys.
The car had about a $500,000 sticker price on it. Where do you peg its value today?
200 to 250, in that range.
I think that's an amazing bargain. You're saving half price and you're getting a car that's got, what, 6,000 miles? I mean, nothing on it.
Yes, if I was ever going to buy a car, a late model sports car, that's exactly what I'd be looking for, is something with a perfect pedigree, no hit, no paint, incredibly well maintained. And I mentioned the options, so that gives it some uniqueness or some desirability later on as well. If you ever want to resell the car at some point, or trade it for another newer one, it's a phenomenal all-around package that way.
The atmosphere like in Auburn when you have your live auction there for cars like this? Does this Ferrari attract a different crowd around it than the Jag or the Allard?
Yeah, I would say so to a degree. It definitely does. I mean, well, you know what it's like. Live auctions, the atmospheres are fantastic, right? I mean, it's a gathering, everybody's in a good mood. It's the place to be when you're able to do it. And something I think is important right now too is, as we've all been affected by, not being able to travel as much, not being able to go do all the things, it is, as a car guy, and I'm sure you can relate, I'm wired to be in car mode during Pebble Beach Car Week and certainly Scottsdale, now Amelia. I mean, if you're a car guy, you're wired to do stuff, go see cars, buy a car, sell a car, do something. People are just wanting to do that. That desire to do that is still there, even though all the venues aren't necessarily available to do that. So when we look back to how successful our Auburn auction was, when all the Pebble stuff got canceled, our Auburn auction was phenomenal. People were just, they couldn't, it was so good, it allowed us to easily say to all of our customers that had consigned cars with us, we know your cars will do well if we move them to Auburn. We've already done it once. We know it's there. The desire for the industry, car guys, collectors, people still want to buy good cars. There's a great market for good cars.
I'll tell you what I miss the most about a live auction right now. When my daughter was about 10 years old, she was sitting next to me at one of your auctions, and she said, "Daddy, everybody else here is buying cars. Why don't we buy one too?"
Yes, absolutely.
When you're at an auction, it's okay. When you're at Car Week, it's okay to live and breathe. You don't have to be a well-rounded person. You can just be a gearhead.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And
that allows you to just fantasize. Every car that goes by, you think about buying or selling. You can't help yourself.
No, you can't. And that's good. I think that's healthy. I think it's great. I think that's one of the great things about our hobby and our industry is that people get to go and do that, right? We're really fortunate to be in a position where everything we're doing is enjoyable.
So tell us about the last car we're going to talk about today. This is a special car. In a way, it has two identities, both important.
Yeah, so the Cobra Daytona Coupe, I really, really like this car. It's started life as a Cobra, as everyone knows, and Carroll Shelby owned the car, and in or about, I can't remember the exact date or time, about 1990, he commissioned Mike McCluskey, who's very well known in Shelby and Cobra circles, to build the Cobra Daytona body that's on the car now. And then the car was campaigned after that while it was Carroll's car, but Phil Hill, Derek Hill, Brian Redmond, there's a great list of drivers who have all driven this car and raced it competitively. And it's kind of found itself now, the feedback that we're getting from people is it might be the most affordable Daytona Coupe that is still a real Shelby Cobra.
Well, how would you describe this to people? Is this a tribute car, a continuation car, a modified car? How do you tell people what it is?
Yeah, well, it's what I try to tell people is exactly what it is. So we always specify. First off, it's a real Cobra. Shelby built it, real deal. Nothing fake about it. And the history of the car is known. And then, like I said, McCluskey, you can see where that body was commissioned when Carroll did that. So you have on two ends of the spectrum, I would say, is the half a dozen or so Cobra Daytona coupes that were built early in the day that are well known and $10+ million a piece today, I'm sure, for those cars. And then you have what I would say is the continuation cars that are probably, you know, depending on the car and how well they were built and done, they're, you know, 200-300 grand. And there's been a couple of the continuation cars have actually sold $850,000 for one of them. So still a real Shelby and everything, right? But we're talking about a new one, not an old one. So this is an old one with a newer body. So in the race car world, that's not crazy or different at all that a race car has another body on it. I mean, Lord knows. They go through them all. The only difference was it's now a closed car and not an open car like it used to be. So I think it's certainly not anywhere near what the original big boy Daytona Cobra coupes are. But what it is for me is it's in a sweet spot there where it's certainly much more, because it's a real Cobra. It's a real Shelby Cobra. So you already know that there's a pretty good 7-figure market there. Just the fact that it's a real Cobra. And then you just add, it's Carroll Shelby's car. He commissioned it. It wasn't, Rod Egan didn't have a body and put it on there. And I mean, it's the Shelby history, lineage, and attachment to him specifically, I think adds tremendous value in this car too.
Would there be any financial sense in taking that body off and putting back on a regular 289 Cobra body?
I don't know financially if there would be. I mean, I don't know that there's not a gain. I mean, I would do what I've seen guys do with like 4.5-liter Bentleys, that when guys put rep bodies on them, if you keep the original, but if you keep the body, you know what I mean? So if you kept both bodies, I think that would be a great idea, you know, and then you could do whatever you want with it at that point.
Tell us, how long does your auction go on for?
So it's Saturday afternoon, this Saturday the 23rd, and it'll be about 4 hours. So 1 o'clock Eastern time is when we start here.
You have all the cars there?
All the cars are here, yes. All sitting under roof. Just I can see a bunch of them right past the cameras here.
One of the disadvantages with some online auction companies is that they never see the cars and they don't have titles. And the auction company doesn't take any responsibility for what's really going on. Where are you in that whole situation?
Yeah, well, that's a good point that you bring that up. And we obviously have all the cars and all the titles in one spot. So that's good for a number of reasons. One is buyers can now be very sure that we have titles for all these cars and everything's there. And what's been really good about having all the cars here in this facility is, even if there are some people, and there have been many, that are like, you know, I don't know if I'm ready for the big crowd right now, but I want to buy the car. And lots of guys have already flown in, done inspections. We're doing FaceTime walkarounds on cars all the time for people, so that if they're going to bid remotely, which they can do, you know, online, by phone, of course, it's given us, it's given buyers that comfort that they can touch it, they can see it if they want to, and they'll know everything about the car. There'll be no disappointments when they get it.
There's somebody watching who's really hot for one of your cars. What advice do you give them?
Think about the fun you've been missing in the last little while with all this COVID stuff, and come and buy yourself some fun. No question about it.
It's been great talking to you today. I'm honored to be on your program. I'm looking forward to watching your auction. And I think it's great that you're in Auburn, you know, the home of Auburn Cord Duesenberg. You've got a personal tradition that goes back there. You've got a great reputation. You have great cars coming up, and I wish you all the luck in the world.
You're a gentleman. Thank you, Keith. Appreciate your time as well. That's it for another great edition on Worldwide TV, guys. Stay tuned. We got lots more coming back for you.